Hi and welcome to my channel Budget Audio Review. Now today's video is yet another cleaning video, so it may not interest a lot of people, but I'm going to delve in quite a bit deeper hopefully on this video. This video has come about because of two reasons. First of all, I covered a couple of questions about cleaning the controls, especially the input select or the function dial switch, shall we say, where a couple of inputs work fine on someone's unit and one of the inputs is a little bit touchy. You keep tapping it and eventually it kind of kicks in, then it cuts out and kind of fades in and out, all that kind of, you kind of know what I'm saying, where the volume comes up and down kind of thing. Just give the input select switch a little tap and it comes back. So I'm going to show you how I cleaned it on this unit here. Now the second reason for doing this video is I've not got a lot of room in the house at the moment because I'm moving. That should be about 4 or 5 weeks time now. So in the meantime I'm really struggling to put some videos up. And lucky enough, this is an amplifier I had quite a while ago now, a few months ago now I think. And all I did basically is get the amplifier, and it was a bit crackly on all the switches etc. So I'll give them all a clean. And I did take a picture of me doing so just in case I needed it for another video to do with something else or cleaning or whatever. So lucky enough I kept all them pictures, so I'm bringing them to you now. I've had a little delve through and found them all. So I'm going to give a little commentary of me actually cleaning this unit and why it's important to make sure every single switch and control is clean on your unit, because they all make, they all make a difference. They all make, they're all involved in bringing the sound from the input right the way through the amplifier to your speaker terminals, the output. So they are important that all the controls are nice and clean. So let's go through that. So as I say, it is important that all the controls are nice and clean. We'll just take a little look at the back of this amplifier. We're just going to concentrate on these inputs here, even though it's got a tape input and output. This is the input, phono, tuner, auxiliary. So we want these sockets to be nice and clean. As you can see, these are okay. They're reasonably clean and everything. They look a bit scratched up, but they're okay. They do the job fine. So if you've got any rust or build up or anything here, you want to give them a clean with some contact cleaner. Make sure they're nice and clean because it is important, because this is where the signal's coming in. And we're going to go right through the amplifier, through every single switch on the front here, cleaning them all up. I'm going to show you that, so the signal passes all the way through and finally comes out of these speaker terminals here, which also you want to make sure are nice and clean, even though set B here is a little bit rusty. I haven't cleaned them up yet, but they need a little bit of a clean. You may have to use some emery paper or something like that. Contact cleaner may be okay, or a bit of sandpaper just to shine them up, something like that. Make sure there's a good connection there on your speakers. Now, so what we're going to do is just going to talk, like say, how it actually works here. For instance sake here, I've got it on tuner, so we're going to pretend we've got a tuner plugged into the RCA sockets at the back, so they need to be nice and clean. From the tuner input, it's going to come through, obviously, like I say, we're going to miss all out all the transistors, resistors, all the amplification, all that kind of stuff inside, preamps, all that. I'm going to give that a complete wide berth. Just a function switch, tuner, so we're going to select tuner, and we want a nice clean contact, so we're going to clean that function switch up, which I'm going to come to pretty shortly. From the function switch of this unit, it actually goes to the tape monitor next. The signal goes to the tape monitor. So that switch needs to be nice and clean. Even though we're not using a tape, it's still making a contact there in the off position. If we were using a tape, a cassette deck, or reel-to-reel, or something plugged into the back of graphic, and we stuck it in the on position, obviously that's making a contact too. But even in the off position, there's a contact there. So we want that switch nice and clean to keep the signal coming through nice and clean. From then onwards, it actually goes to the balance control of this unit. So we want that balance control to be nice and clean, that variable resistor to be nice and clean there. Then from the balance, it goes to the loudness and volume pretty much together. These two are wired, so we want the loudness switch nice and clean and the volume pots nice and clean. From the volume, it goes to the bass and treble, so we want them to be clean. Then from there, it's going to go to your output. It's pretty much going to connect your speakers up now. So we've got the A, B and AB set of speakers on this particular amplifier and the off position. So that switch wants to be nice and clean, so then it takes the signal to your speaker output terminal. So the signal path is kept clean at all times. We don't want any dirt, any muck. We want a nice solid contact. So let's have a look at that function switch. That's the first switch we're going to do. Right, this is looking at the function switch from inside the amplifier. This little kind of like circuit board sticking up. has got the connections required to select either auxiliary, phono or tuner from the rear of our unit, and pass that signal forward on its journey through the amplifier. So hopefully I'm going to talk you through how that is actually achieved here and why it's important to give this a clean, and also show you me cleaning it as well. But on the rear of your amplifier, that RCA inputs, obviously for each channel we've got two, a left and right input. Now this particular board here, I think is the left hand channel I'm showing you here at the moment, because the right hand channel is on the flip side of this little circuit board. So exactly the same kind of thing is happening on the other side. I'll show you a picture of that a bit later on, and me cleaning that, but we're just going to do one channel here at the moment, and we're going to talk you through this one channel, and hopefully you'll understand the other side will be exactly the same. So once I've explained one channel, one side, the left hand side being cleaned up, you'll realise when we flip it over and clean the other side, that's going to clean up the right hand side. And that's why it's important to do both sides of this rotary switch, not just doing this side here that you can see. There's a side on the other side of this board which is a bit more awkward to see, because it's kind of wedged in between the board and the front, the fascia of the unit. There's not much of a gap there, but we're going to look at that shortly. So let's just start labelling a few things up here on this particular board. So there you can see, I do apologise, the PC and my phone's on at the moment. I'm trying to get through these videos as quickly as possible. There's the inputs coming now. I've got labelled up inputs at the top: auxiliary, tuner and phono. These are the inputs from your RCA sockets at the back. This is where they all come to these three kind of connections. These are like little, I'm not too sure how to explain it, like little spring, they're not spring, but they kind of got a little bit of tension in them, and connections that kind of grip the blade as it goes round on this rotary switch, kind of make a contact. Now these are kind of like they haven't got any springs in them, but they're kind of like springy. They kind of like got a bit of tension to them, shall I say. And over a period of time, this tension can completely go. I mean, it can go over a period of time in some cases, so it doesn't matter how much you clean this switch, it's never going to make a complete contact. Now you may be able to re-bend these back into place gently with a very, very thin pair of thin nose pliers, something like that maybe, but there's a possibility of you actually snapping these connections off, so be very, very careful. And these connections are right where it actually touches this circular disc. I'll come to that in a minute maybe. So we've got the inputs here coming in: auxiliary, tuner and phono, and the ones in blue are no connections. These are maybe used in reserve. Maybe they do a 4 input or 5 input amplifier or receiver, so they can put an extra couple of connections here if they needed. But on this particular unit we haven't got that, we just got the 3 connections. And that very last one with the red arrow is the output. So we've got the inputs coming in, depending where we've got the rotary switch, we'll select one of them inputs and it will go to this output. Right, so in this picture here, how can I explain this? It's a bit awkward to explain. First of all, the white arrow is pointing to the disc. This disc is always in contact with the output. That blade on the output kind of wiper is always connected to that disc. Hopefully you can see that there. And depending what position this disc is in, you've got a little wiper coming off this disc which goes to the contact. So if I just take a closer look at that, hopefully there with the red arrow now showing, there's a little kind of like a little spur coming off this disc, little extension to the disc, shall we say, which is always in contact with either 1, 2 or 3 in this picture, which would be phono, tuner or auxiliary. So it's always in contact with one of them 3. In this particular case, number 1. If we was to turn that disc, if we was to turn that function control round, it would move the disc and that would move to number 2 or number 3. So it's always in contact with either 1, 2 or 3, and the actual output is always in contact. No matter where this switch is, that output is always in contact. Now how can I explain these kind of like connections? A little bit awkward. They're kind of 2 bits of metal sandwiched together, and they've got a little bit of a tension and a little bit of like of a curve to them as well. So that disc, that little protrusion of that disc, kind of slides in between them as you turn the actual function switch, and it kind of grips it a bit like your hand would grip maybe a table. If you can imagine gripping a table edge, and the table edge being that disc, that protrusion of the disc, that little blade of the, the little wiper of the disc. It kind of grips it, and your hand being the actual contacts, being contact 1, 2 and 3. Now over a period of time, them contacts, or your hand, that grip could kind of loosen a bit. It may not be so, you know, it's got, like I say, a tension. It's no springs or nothing, but it's got a tension there. That tension could go. So there is a possibility of no matter how you clean this disc and these contacts, that it never makes a proper contact. Now you could try and maybe bring back that tension by using a thin nose pliers or something like that, and just trying to bend that connection back on them 1, 2 and 3s. Them I'm not too sure what actually to call them. Them connections, shall we say. You may be able to bend them back where it's making contact with the wiper of that disc, but then again you may never be able to, or you may snap them off or something like that. But it's always worth a try. And obviously if you break it or can't do it and it doesn't work, then obviously you're going to have to look for a new second hand, probably I say new, a second hand function switch, which you know, you may be able to pick up off of another unit, a unit not working or something like that. But it's rare that happens, really. I think I've had no problems with all the units I've got. I've always managed to clean them up and get them working, but I'm just saying that could happen. Obviously bits of metal over time become a little bit brittle. It could happen. So let's move on to position 2 and 3, just to show you what it looks like in them positions. Right, this is in position 2 on tuner, and as you can see, that blade, that little extension to the disc, that little blade has moved round to tuner position, and as shown with the yellow arrow, and the red arrow is showing you that the output there is always in contact with that disc. It's just a little spur off that disc is now under tuner connection, on that little tuner grip connection. And if we move it to number 3, or shall I say phono, as you can see, that blade has now moved over to get itself underneath the little phono connection, as shown with the red arrow. Like I say, that if you just imagine your hand gripping a table, and your hand being that connection and the table being the wiper, that's pretty much how it is connected. So now we want to make sure that wiper in that disc, where it's making contact with the output, that's always in contact with the disc, that disc and the connections, everything is nice and clean, because dust, dirt, grime, residue, oxide, all that kind of stuff gets trapped underneath there over a period of time. So we're going to give that a nice clean now by giving it a spray. And once we've done this side, don't forget this is only the left hand side, we're going to get to the other side of this little board and show you the right hand side, and giving that a clean as well. So let's give this a clean. Right, it's just a case of aiming our contact clean, and just one short spurt should do it. Even with one short spurt, it pretty much drenches the circuit board there, as you can see. So you may want to put a little bit of a tissue, toilet paper underneath. I usually just use an earbud or something like that and just soak up the excess. And there's a closer up picture of the actual rotary switch cleaned after me giving it a short spray. Okay, so we're going to do the right hand channel now, this board, the flip side of this circuit board as indicated here. If you can't get to it, if you can't get the front panel off, or it's very awkward to get to, you may just want to give it a spray by aiming the straw like I have done here, on the right hand side, the flip side as indicated by the red arrow. But I'm actually going to take the front fascia off here. I haven't got to move it much actually, just a couple of inches to give myself a little bit more of an excess, as you'll see as I come to it. In some cases you may actually have to take the volume, the bass, the treble, the balance controls off to get to it. But here all I've got to undo is these screws here indicated by the red arrows, and once I undo all them screws, I've just got to flip the unit over and undo these 2 bottom screws on the bottom plate, and then that front will come off, or move anyway, a couple of inches, just enough for me to get in there and have a look a little bit closer at the other side of this rotary switch. And as you can see, it's quite dusty in there. A closer look here, the yellow arrow is on the output, and the red arrow is showing that disc that spins round, and as you can see, the output is always connected to that disc. So we look at the next picture here, as you can see, just another angle, the output is always connected. and the red arrow is indicating the disc, and as you can see there's quite a lot of dust in here. Another little view, and the actual inputs are down the bottom here, as indicated by the red arrow. You can't really see them, they're kind of bunched up there, not easy to get my camera in there and me showing you, but that's where they are in this particular case. So we want to aim our straw now in there, and the fluid will obviously run down and get in contact with them inputs at the bottom of this rotary switch. You know, one good spurt, short spurt will do the trick. And there you go, I've given it a good short spurt, and now it's looking a lot brighter and cleaner than what it actually did when we first started this process. So don't forget, that's both sides of this board's been done. Now I'm not saying your switcher are two-sided, it may just be one-sided, it may just be you know, done differently to this particular input select switch. You may only have to do one side. You'll get an idea if you can see contacts or a plate on both sides of the board, as this board did have, or this rotary switch did have. Your rotary switch, like I say, may just have one side, and it's just getting to that side to give it a good clean. So now we're going to go on to some more controls on this particular amplifier. Okay, one thing I haven't shown you is how to take the front off. We're going to make it easier to get to a couple of the controls and switches. So we're just going to undo these 4 nuts here, and once we've undone them, we're going to pull all the knob covers off, just pull them off, and that also includes the power, tape monitor and loudness little covers for the switches there as well. They're just pull off, and there you can see the front coming away. So now we've got it off, we can see how dirty and grimy, how much dirt's got in this unit on all the switches and controls. So we can give that a clean, bring it up nice and clean, get rid of all that dirt. We've done it going back into the amplifier. While we've got the front off, we might as well clean the front fascia on the front part and on the back, and getting into all the holes where the control knobs go through. Give it a good clean so there's no dust left on that anywhere, and we can put that aside for when we replace it and put the amp back together. Okay, so the next 2 controls we're going to do are both together here. They're the loudness and the tape monitor, the tape monitor being nearest to us. So if I just bring up this picture here, we're going to look for a gap now to get the fluid, the cleaning fluid in, as these are pretty much sealed units. They've got a few little holes here and there, so the red arrows are indicating 2 holes where we could spray the lubricant, and also the blue arrow is a good place because this is where the slider goes backwards and forwards depending if the switch is on or off for the tape monitor. The slider being that white little bit of plastic indicated by the white arrow, and that slides backwards and forwards as the direction of the yellow arrows, depending, like I say, if it's on or off. So we can get some lubricant in there, that'd be great. And while we're spraying the lubricant, also tilt the unit backwards and forwards, so gravity kind of takes its toll on the lubricant and drags it down towards that switch and them contacts. If you can't get it down there, that still doesn't do the trick. Like I say, there's a couple more holes here indicated by the red arrows that we can get into here. You will find some switches are nice and easy, you can see them really clearly, and some of them you're going to look around for a little while, maybe you can get into some of these sealed units, and some of them may not even have a hole at all, so you may have to try and find a way of maybe opening these up to get some lubricant in to clean the contacts. So that's the loudness and tape monitor done there. What I'm going to do is also show you another picture here. This is the front of that. If there wasn't any gaps anywhere at the rear, there is a very slight gap here at the front where the switch kind of protrudes. So if I'll show you a JVC unit I've got here, they've got 3 switches here, pretty much the same, and if you couldn't get to the switches itself, you could actually spray the lubricant in the front, because there's a very, very small gap here where the switch goes up and down. So that's another place you could actually spray the lubricant to clean these types of switches. Next, onto the volume control. As you can see, the volume control is quite easy to get to, and we can see, we can actually see, if you turn it, we'll actually see the wipers going round inside. There's a nice gap for us to get our cleaning fluid into, our cleaning spray. Now, don't forget, this is a stereo pot. There's 2 pity backs against each other there, on top of each other, so we're going to have to clean both of them. So that's one channel there being cleaned, and there's the other channel there being cleaned. So once we clean that, there's the bass and treble controls. Again, very nice and easy to get to. Both of these are stereo, don't forget. So we're going to clean them as shown here. 1, 2 for the bass, I think that is, or the treble. Then on the other side, don't forget, these are 2 pots pity banked on top of each other, left and right channels, so both of them needed cleaning. Now we're going to go on to the balance control. As you can see, the balance control's got nowhere for us to get to it there. Looking this way, it's kind of been put upside down compared to the volume, bass and treble. So to do this, you could try and squeeze the straw, because there is a gap on the other side of this, and around the other side, 180 degrees. You can maybe squeeze the straw in there and give it a spray and turn the unit upside down, and gravity will pull the fluid onto the contacts, the blades going around there, the wiper. If that's the case, but lucky enough on this particular unit, we can actually take the back plate off. So there's the screws to undo the back plate. So I'll say the back plate is the actual underside plate, should I say. Once that comes off, we've got really easy access to this balance control. And again, don't forget this is a stereo unit, so we're going to do both pots of that balance control, and that's the volume, bass, treble and balance all being cleaned. Right, the next switch we're going to clean here is the actual speaker select switch. This is on this particular unit, speakers set A, B, A and B or off, i.e. headphones. Now we want to make sure this is nice and clean. We want to make sure good contact, because this is coming from the output, the amplifier, to your speakers. So you want a good solid contact here, so the speakers get as much of the signal as possible. So we're going to give this a good clean. Now on this particular unit here, as you can see, it's quite dusty. First thing we're going to do is I'm just going to get a cotton bud. You may have a little mini vac yourself and just clean away some of this dust. So there's me with my cotton bud, cleaned it. That's what it looks like now. It's a bit cleaner, still some dust here and there, but I've already done it quickly. So what we can do here, if we can't get the actual switch out or can't get to it, you may just want to give a spray here. As you can see, this is a different angle, and you just may want to just get a spray in there if you can't actually remove or get anywhere else to that switch. It's a little bit awkward to get to in some units maybe. Now if we took the bottom plate off, which we did, there's another picture of it there. This is the top switch at the top there. It's a bit more easy to get to, and we can actually put a spray in there like so and clean it like that. But what I'm going to do with this particular unit, because I want to make sure this is nice and clean, this switch, is we're actually going to take that speaker select switch out. Now before you do that, you may actually want to take a picture of where all the wires go on that switch, a couple of pictures, just in case they kind of come off when you're pulling it out. You may be afraid the wires are going to come off, but if that was the case, then the wires weren't soldered on there very well in the first place. So if they did come off, it's probably done you a favour, because now you're going to solder them on nice and tight, a good connection, because just by moving that switch, the wires shouldn't really come off, and if they did, obviously it weren't making very good contact. So to do that, what we're going to do is go around the front here, and we're just going to undo this nut here. This is the volume control. Just going to undo that nut, and once we undo that nut, that volume control will pull inside the unit. As you can see, there it is there, and you can see how much dust is actually caked on that switch. Absolute tons. So we want to give that a clean. You may want to go in there with a cotton bud first of all, very gently, just picking a few bits of that dust out, not getting anywhere near the contacts at all, as you're going to ruin them. You may want to give that a miss and just give it a spray. So there you go. If we just give it a spray on one side, and we're going to turn it round and do the other side as well. So we're both sides of the contacts here, so it's got a nice good spray, a good clean, and there it is after it's been sprayed and cleaned. And all we're going to do now is maybe just give it a little bit more dust around the shaft than that with a cotton bud, and we're going to replace it back into the unit. Right, we've pretty much covered every single switch and control on this unit. Just one more to go, and I don't really recommend you do your power switch unless it's absolutely necessary. You've got some arcing or some noises coming from it when you turn it on and off. It keeps arcing, and the amplifier kind of like cuts out a little bit, and you tap the switch and it comes back on, or making that kind of arcing noise, which is covered in a video here. This is a video, a link at the top, where I replaced the Marantz power switch because it was making that arcing noise and affecting the bulbs with dimming and getting brighter on the receiver, and just tapping it would or wiggling it about would bring them bulbs up brighter, then it would fade away kind of thing. Yeah, so there's no need to do it unless something like that is happening. What I'm going to do is just undo these two screws here. Once they're undone, the power switch, there it is, and it's pretty much a power switch that's completely sealed near enough. You may have a rotary power switch which goes left and right, something like that. You may easy to be able to see the contacts. If that's the case, just aim your cleaning fluid on the contacts. In this particular case, like I say, it's pretty much sealed. I've just got 4 little gaps here well, I could get the fluid in, so I'm going to spray in one of these little gaps, keeping the switch as it is, so the fluid runs towards the back of the switch where the contacts are inside, and hopefully that cleans it. Now if that fails, like I say, if you've got a switch that's arcing, after cleaning it, it still doesn't do it, you may have to replace the switch itself. They do go, the on-off switch do go on quite a lot of these old receivers, so you'd have to look around for a replacement switch. There's usually plenty about on eBay, places like that, and that video, like I said, I'll just give the link to, does cover replacing that switch. Okay, so this is amplifier completely cleaned, ready to go. I hope you got something out of this video. Until the next time, I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.